What is IPFS and Filecoin? If you are getting into Web3, you may have heard these terms, but what are they? Let's talk about it. IPFS is a peer-to-peer protocol, making the web upgradable, resilient, and more open. Let's think of it as a peer-to-peer version of HTTP. What is Filecoin? This is a decentralized storage network to store humanity's most important information. We can think of it as an Airbnb for storage. Behind them is a protocol labs, an open source R&D lab building protocols, tools, and services to improve the internet. Before we look into them, let's talk about the web. We have been using the web or Web2 for so many years, for decades. This is a centralized network. We may also be familiar with the concept of distribution, and when we are getting to Web3, we are more interested in decentralization or a decentralized network or web. Why is that? In Web2, this is a centralized network. You may be familiar with the concept of single point of failure, and the data in Web2 get monetized by data analysis. While we are getting into Web3, we are looking to see decentralization. We want to see users' power service, censorship resilience, and their privacy, as well as self-verified non-silo data. Now let's look into IPFS, which is interplanetary file system. In our regular file system, we have files and folders. In IPFS, the file is distributed on multiple nodes. There's no central server. Data is resilient and offline first. When we are using our computer, the file stored has a unique path to it. So this is how we address a file on our computer. In Web2, we are using IP and the port, or domain and the URL to address a web resource. But in IPFS, we are using content ID to address a piece of content. So IPFS addresses content by what it is instead of where it is. So you don't need to remember where the content is. You just need to know the ID of the content. It does that by replacing folder or file location with a content ID. This is the term CID in IPFS. So, same content means same CID. So content ID can be reproduced anytime from the original content. The copies of the content are verifiable by their CID. We can see the mapping from content to CID or content identifier. It's using cryptographic hash function to generate the content ID or CID. When we have the content and identifier, how can we discover and address the content on IPFS? So we are using DHT or distributed hash table. This is part of the concept of content routing. A DHT or distributed hash table is maintained by multiple peers. it provides a 2-column table. It can tell for a specific CID who has it. So each node or each IPFS node in the network is treated as a peer. So the DHT tells us who has what. There's another type of content or data in DHT. It's to tell where a peer is. So this is the peer information. We also call it peer routing. By given a peer ID, the DHT should be able to tell us the location of that peer. The location is stored with the information we call multi-address in the DHT. How can we use IPFS? We can run our own node or our own network of nodes. Alternatively, we can also pay a pinning service to pin the content on their nodes. For example, Pinata, Infra, and more. Otherwise, you may have to hope that your content becomes popular enough so that other nodes will pin it as well. Now let's see what is Filecoin. Filecoin is storage designed for Web3. It's compatible with IPFS and Web3, which means essentially a Filecoin node is also an IPFS node. But there's still some difference we will talk about in the future. It's verifiable via cryptographic proofs. It can ensure that providers are actually storing data and keeping it safe. It uses block rewards as incentives and the collateral slashing as penalties. This is a massive decentralized network and governed by consensus instead of a single corporation. Filecoin is crypto economically incentivized storage system. So clients make storage deals with storage providers to store data. Storage providers that do not honor the storage deal are penalized. The user requesting the data pays for the service. Now you can see Filecoin and the IPFS, they have pretty similar features. On top of IPFS, Filecoin gives the incentivization to the whole network to encourage the nodes to store data. If you run an IPFS node, you will have no return for storing data. But how to encourage more and more nodes to participate? So we have the Filecoin as the incentivization layer. Now in summary, IPFS and Filecoin. IPFS is for fast, flexible retrieval, act as gateways, local nodes, or browsers. And Filecoin for persistence and verifiability. Okay, this is the introduction to IPFS and Filecoin. We will talk more about them, talk about the technical details and the use cases. Okay, that's it for today. Stay tuned. See you next time.